been over a week now since the FM21 beta dropped, and still the most common question I get is, how did I spend £100 million in a transfer window when I only had a budget of £1 million going in without selling any of the major players at the club I was managing? Rather than constantly answering that question down in the comments section, I thought it was probably easier just to make you a video. Hello folks, and welcome back to another FM21 beta video here on the channel. I'm Kev. Coming up in this video, I'm going to take you through step by step how I did my first transfer window in my beta save with Leicester. As you can see, the season is over now. It went quite well. I know you'll probably question some of these transfers were a little bit iffy. As you can see, it turned out okay. We won the Europa League as well. But we did manage to spend £100 million in that first window, whilst only having a £1 million budget at the start of the game. And we didn't sell Madison or Vardy or Ndidi or any. We didn't sell any of the stars. We just did it using stuff that is in the game that you could use and apply to your save as well. If that sounds like something you're interested in, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on so you don't miss out on any of the future videos. Go and check out the whole Leicester series so you can see how this story panned out. I'll link to that down in the description below. And of course, if you like this kind of content, want to see me make more of this kind of thing, make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on the video. That tells me you're liking what I'm doing. And historically, the stuff that's got more likes is the stuff that I've kind of doubled down on and spent more time and produced more videos on. So if you like it, like it. There's a catchphrase for you. Right, shall we get into this transfer window? I'm not going to dwell on things too much because the answer is actually quite straightforward. Look at all these clauses we've got. That's ridiculous. But if we go back and look at Leicester as we were at the start of the save, you can see that we started with a £1 million transfer budget. We did spend £224 million in total, with £135 million coming back into the club through player sales. But that doesn't necessarily tell you the whole story, because a lot of these transfers went through before I started the save, so we're not counting them. Castagna for 19.25, Fofana for 32 million. We're not counting either of those transfers within our total that we've spent. Likewise, the sale of Ben Chilwell for £50 million. That's not being counted towards our total. So we're starting from the Emerson transfer on the players in, and the Amati transfer for the transfers out, which is there. So if we run through in order and look at what we did, how we did it, how we structured it, and how we managed to spend as much money as we did, hopefully you can go and then do a similar thing in your saves if you want to. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, certainly not every window, because if we jump over to the finances, you can see that we've run up £100 million of transfer debt doing it. So it's not something you want to do all the time, but it's certainly something you can do if you feel like you've got a team that needs a little bit of a rebuild job. So the first thing that we did is identified the players that we didn't want. They weren't going to be part of our plans, part of our squad, the way that we were playing. And I stuck a load of players on the transfer list. Daniel Amate, Islam Slimani, Nampalys Mendy, Damari Gray. These were all players that I decided I didn't want. Iheanacho. Who else have we got in here that we sold for decent money? Dennis Prayet. I don't know. That was the main reason I sold him. Didn't know his name. Mark Albrighton, Christian Fuchs. These are all players that I didn't want. So I just stuck them all on the transfer list straight away and started offering them out. But when I offer out players, I don't just offer them out and then that's like one and done. Oh, no one wanted them. They'll have to go for free now. Have we got anyone we want to get rid of this summer? If you've already watched my transfer special, you'll knew who we wanted rid of. Jose Perez. We don't want Jose Perez, so let's offer him out. So we can see that his value is considered at £21 million. But I'm not going to... Firstly, I kind of ignore that when it comes to selling a player. But there is some interest in him. So initially, we're just going to offer him out unspecified. We're not transfer listing him yet. We're just going to offer him out unspecified, see what kind of offers come back in. If we don't get an offer in, at that point, we'll start offering him out for a specific value, starting at his actual price. So if we go back in and look at Perez again, we'd initially transfer list him and offer him out for 21 million. If we get no bites then, we'd maybe offer him out for 18 and start dropping down until we get to the point where we start getting some offers in for him. Once we start getting some offers in, we then start trying to creep back up again. So if we got down to, say, 15 million and we got an offer in for 15 million for him, let's say we get 4 offers in at 15 million, we'll accept one of them, but then offer him out again at 17 million. And just see if those clubs who are interested at 15 might sneak back up to 17. So we're always trying to maximise the amount of money that we can get for players, but we're not married to this value, this £21 million value. We're not going to be upset if we don't get his value for him, because the player's value is really what our team's willing to play for him. The value that the game gives you is very arbitrary, very meaningless. It's just really there as it's almost like a scorecard. It doesn't really mean anything. So my main goal initially was get rid of the players that I knew I wasn't going to use and get as much money for them as we could. So Daniel Amate is the first one who left on the 8th of August. We got a £12 million deal for him, which puts our transfer budget up to 13 million. But then the next day we signed Emerson for 20 million. How did we do that? Really simple. We did it on installments. If we just find someone we might want to sign this summer, this is probably a transfer that doesn't end up going through. But let's say we've already got Donnarumma coming in, so I don't definitely remember to cancel this one. Let's say we want Dean Henderson. Firstly, we're going to chat to his agent. His agent says we can get him for somewhere between 30 and 42.5 million. So what we know straight away is we're not going to give him between 30 and 42 million as an upfront amount. Let's go in there and try and do a transfer negotiation. We're going to offer them nothing up front, and then we're going to offer them a big chunk of money on installments. And this is where we're going to start our negotiation. So we'll probably go towards the top end of what the agent has said, because normally this doesn't work. If I were to offer the 30 million, United would probably just decline it straight away. Whereas if I'm offering towards the top end of what the agent is recommending, often you'll find they'll come back with some kind of negotiation. So straight away, United are back with a negotiation, 18.75 million up front, 21.5 million on installments over the next 3 years. Now, what this does is it means straight away, even if we went for this deal, we now only have to take £18.75 million out of this season's transfer budget. This money is kind of ignored for the purposes of now. Future you is going to have to worry about it, but it doesn't come out of this season's transfer budget. You can see that at the bottom there. Current season transfer budget cost £18.75 million. So in the case of Emerson, you can certainly see how I managed to get him for 20 million as a headline figure when I only had 13 million in the budget, and he wasn't the only one I bought out of that 13 million. But you also don't have to accept the first offer that comes back in on these negotiations. What I've found through trial and error over the years is usually you can drop these down by up to a third of the upfront and stick that upfront back on the installments. As long as you're offering the same total amount, they might come back and ask for a little bit more, or they might just accept it. So what we've got there is we've arranged a deal for Dean Henderson, who is a player we've already been told we'd have to spend £40 million on, but he's only going to cost us 12 million from our budget. So all of a sudden, a player who might have been unaffordable becomes affordable. We're going to cancel that because we don't need Henderson and Donnarumma. So if we go back and look at the transfers that we did for Leicester, Amate leaves for 12 million. Emerson comes in for 20 million. There's no way of me checking what the actual breakdowns of the deals were now. I guess, in fact, there probably is. I could probably go and find Emerson on here, and we can see what other clauses we've got in place for him. Emerson, because I know I certainly... there you go, Emerson. So you can see with Emerson, although it's a £20 million deal, and we actually only spent 5 million of it up front, with another 3 years of £5 million payments on installments. So we had 13 million in the budget. We spent 5 million of that on Emerson. The other 15 million is future me's problem. We did the same thing with some of these other transfers that went through before we sold anybody else. Rodrigo Kiao, Joaquin, Ikone, all coming in for big money, all on installments, when all we're doing is selling Slimani and Mendy. So we're already spending way over what's coming in on the transfers in. But the other thing that you can do is sign a player on loan with a future fee attached. And that's what we did with Divock Origi. You can see Divock Origi came in on a 1 year loan with a future fee. So he's going to become, in fact, it's a future transfer rather than a future fee. You can do it either way. You can have an optional future fee where you can choose whether or not to pay them in front, pay them at the end of it to sign the player permanently. That usually costs a little bit more on the fee. If you have a guaranteed future fee, you often find you can get quite the discount on the player. So you can see Divock Origi, valued at 35.5 million. Our future fee for him is 18.75 million. So we got him on loan for a year and didn't cost us anything, but we're getting our 35 million pound player in now, knowing that in a year's time, we have to pay half of what his value is. So even if it doesn't work out and we decide we don't want Divock Origi after all, he signs for 18.75 million pounds this summer. I'm very confident, even if I decided I didn't want him, I could just flip him straight back out of the club again for 30 million and make a profit on him. And we had him for a year, and he was a player that we wanted and have used. And actually, we probably will keep, because I think he's done quite a good job for us out on that left-hand side. So that was the other method that we've used for bringing in players, installments and loans. And what you find in FM21, which we didn't get in previous FMs, is you actually find out what next season's budget is. So you can arrange these future transfers and knowing that you're sticking within your budget. So although I only had a £1 million budget in my first season, I was told I had £33 million coming in next year. So I put 18.75 of that for Divock Origi, and then carried on looking to try and do a similar deal with somebody else. And this summer, we can see we've got a much bigger transfer budget up front, and still got some budget next year, so we could go and do a similar job. So we've sold a few players for decent-ish money, and we've brought Emerson, Origi, Joaquin, Kiao, Ikone, and then we got to Houssem Aouar, and we've got him for £35 million as a I mean, that's a club record transfer. We haven't sold anyone major to pay for that. If we go and have a look at the clauses again and find Aouar, you can see that on his instalments, although it's a 35 million deal up front, we had 24 million of that in instalments. So we've only paid 11 million pounds out of our budget now, which we funded by selling these fringe players, but we were able to spend a record fee to bring him in. And then we did the same thing with Calvin Phillips, brought him for £30 million, and then we went and did the same thing in January as well. Selling the odd player here and there. You can see we got a fantastic £22 million fee for Kelechi Iheanacho, which to me, I felt like I should have been wearing a mask and evading the police after that deal went through, because we got 22 million for Iheanacho. We spent 20 million on Ikone, and on the Ikone deal, we didn't come close to giving it to him all in one go either. With Ikone, we've actually only given him 7 million up front, having been handed 19.5 million up front for Iheanacho. It's if you're smart with how you use installments, how you reinvest money from sales, how you use loans. You can see we do lots of loans for loan fees, which give us that money that we can use as our down payments on installments. And then there's always these players, these fringe players, just drifting away out of the club. We sold £135 million worth of players, but in January, we were able to go out and buy 3 more. We got Diakabi, we got Mbabu, we got Edouard. And again, no, it looks on the face of it like that's 50, 60 million pounds worth of transfers, but it's not, because when we go back in to the installments, you can see with Diakabi, lots of it over the years. Edouard, exactly the same. Mbabu, where is he? Mbabu, exactly the same situation. Now, the one thing to be aware of is that if you do it every summer, it is going to catch up with you, because the game doesn't really understand what you're doing very well. You can see from my finances, they've given me an enormous budget this year. We have qualified for the Champions League, so I guess they've got a little bit of an excuse. But even so, that's probably too much transfer budget on a projection that doesn't look that strong. So if you abuse the installments and the future fees and the loans consistently each year, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, you are going to be in financial trouble, and you're going to have to stop at some point, and the board won't tell you to stop. You kind of have to take some of the club finance management stuff into your own hands. But for me, I look at that and see we've still got a positive balance. Getting into the Champions League has made a big difference to our projections. So by doing all those transfers in one summer, we were able to kind of fast track the progress of the club by a couple of years, get into the Champions League early, and yeah, we've run up that amount of debt by doing it, but that'll all be gone in 3 years, and it's comfortably paid for within the budgets that we've got, assuming we carry on qualifying for the Champions League. So as long as you're sensible with the transfers that you do and you bring in the right players that are going to lead to your club getting better, you can massively overspend. You can even do it a couple of years in a row. Just be careful that you don't completely ruin your club, unless, of course, you're happy to do it and then jump off and go and manage someone else afterwards. That works too. But that is how I spent £100 million on a transfer window with Leicester, despite having a budget of only £1 million. If you found that video helpful, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on for all of my future videos. We've got the daily Let's Plays. I'm trying to do more of this tutorial guide stuff as well, so let me know down in the comments if there's any of this style of video that you'd like to see. And thank you very much for watching.